losing time. One more time. It's a sign of the times. It's just not time to die. I'm gonna love you for a long time. When it's time to go, I'm just fine. I'm wasting time. It's always a good time. There never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them.
Time is truly one of the most beautiful and obnoxious things to ever exist. It seems to be the reason I will start crying for absolutely no reason in the middle of the day, but it's also the very thing that's led me to all the people I love more than anything in this world. How does something we can't see or physically feel have such a profound effect on our life, for both the better and for the worse? Can we exist without time? Would we even know how? And how does this thing operate on a scientific level? Will we ever truly understand how time works? I'm not quite sure, but in the meantime, we can sure try to understand as much as we possibly can. First, let's start with the science. How does time actually work? Time is not a fixed unit or measurement for everyone. It's all relative. It's not moving in a uniform way. It depends on the place in space. Time moves faster in the mountains than it does at sea level, and it's a very slight difference, but a difference nonetheless. Meaning, in the mountains, a clock will move faster, plants will grow faster, and a person will age faster simply because they've experienced more time. And on a smaller scale, people's heads experience more time than their feet. But nearly everything in our life is relative. Nothing is ever in absolute motion or absolute rest, but in rest or motion in relation to the things around it. For example, if I'm sitting on my bed reading a book, I may look and feel still, but that's only relative to the things I see around me. In reality, I'm anchored to a planet that orbits at the pace of 67,000 miles per hour, and Earth is just one of the many planets in our solar system, a solar system that orbits the center of the universe at 490,000 miles per hour. You may lay down sometimes and feel as still as a stone, and other times your body appears still, but your mind is racing and you notice your breath. It doesn't feel like a moment of stillness at all. But hey, we're all hurling through space, so we deserve some empathy. Circadian rhythm comes from the Latin word meaning about a day. It's one of our body's many biological clocks. Different proteins in our brain activate genes that make us fall asleep or stay awake, which is why we wake up in the morning and begin to feel tired after the sun sets. In addition to these genes and proteins, we rely on external cues, such as light. When we see light, our optic nerve tells certain areas in our brain to stop producing melatonin, a hormone that triggers sleep, in addition to increasing our body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure. This external cue is why watching a lot of TV or looking at your phone late at night often makes it hard to fall asleep. It's messing with the external cues your body is expecting to have at the time. It's telling you to wake up when really it's time to go to bed. But as the day progresses, in the evening and late afternoon, more melatonin will be produced by your body, and your temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure will slowly begin to decline. Time is not only a concept we perceive in our head, but one our brains help produce in a more literal sense. Our brain helps us all run on a 24-hour clock, one that repeats itself in cycles every day once the sun sets and rises again. When we look around and see our lives unfolding, we feel as though we are looking at the present and living in the now, but that is not always the case. When you look up at the stars, you are looking at the past, and this is because it takes time for the light to reach our eyes. When we look up at the Big Dipper, for example, the stars are 79 to 120 light years away, which means what we are seeing is the Big Dipper as it was 79 or more years ago. When you look up at the moon, you see light that left the surface 1.3 seconds ago. When looking at the basic equations of time and how it works on a fundamental level, there is really no difference between the past and the future. Because of this, there is only one scientific equation that describes the flowing of time. Yes, one. And it relies on a loss of heat. Is that really the only thing that differentiates the past from the future? Operationally, yes, but we notice a stark difference between past and future. We may be creations of science, but we are also creatures of meaning. And recognizing the past and future as something different allows us to organize our life in a purposeful way. But how do we experience time? It's not the same as the way it's written in equations and textbooks. How do we make meaning of it? I decided to ask some of my friends a few questions about time, what they think about it, what they've been told about it, the ways it makes us feel, and how time led us to be here right now.
Here? Like this physical location? I wish I knew, I really do.
I walked, but I was pushing my bike, so.
I guess birth, first and foremost.
What's my house? If I wasn't here, it would be a little weird.
I'm trying to think about how far back to go.
I biked from my house.
I mean, how did any of us get here, you know?
A lot of it was convenience. Like every decision I feel like I've made in my life has just been like what's most convenient or what makes the most sense.
Is this like a Vogue 33 questions?
Essentially.
Loving this. I'm feeling like a celeb.
Does it ever feel like time is moving too fast or too slow?
The first thing that comes to mind is when I was 12 years old and broke my hip. And making that thing heal took forever.
Today, when I woke up at 8 and I put another alarm for 8:30, but then it felt like 5 minutes after I woke up, and then 8:30, it didn't feel like 30 minutes. It passed too fast.
Whenever I'm looking forward to something, time moves slowly, but also when I'm dreading things, then time moves slowly.
I feel like whenever I'm having a lot of fun, like especially with other people, time moves really fast. And I think it has happened less now when I'm older, which is maybe kind of sad. Like maybe I don't have as much fun. But I remember when I was younger, like whenever I'd be hanging out with my friends, I'd always like 3 hours would feel like 15 minutes. And then even now, like when I'm doing something really fun, it's like time goes by really quickly. But I think it's because I get lost in the moment. I don't know.
I think just like in day to day, like small scale, like I can like be at the end of a day and like totally forget, or just like if like I don't even understand like what time it is or like what has happened.
I think this quarter, time has moved both fast and slow, and that I cannot believe it's over, and yet I cannot also believe it wasn't over a month ago. I don't know, I think like as you get older and have more years, time kind of distorts. But yeah, this year's been weird.
Honestly, yeah, like right now at the same time, I feel like the last year has been like on super speed, but also it feels like where I was in September is like years ago at the same time.
Both.
Do you believe time is universal, or do you think you feel it differently from the people around you?
Oh, I don't know. Time's a construct, so it's like it's not a set and defined. Essentially, you feel it different because we created it, so it's not a natural thing.
I think it's totally relative. Because it's like not real, right? I mean, it's real, but it's like connected to space and connected to like who you are. Like I don't think I have the same perception of time as like a 1,000-year-old tree or like a gnat, you know?
And I've thought about this a lot, especially because I feel like my mom has like had it kind of tough, but like not everyone's 24 hours is the same.
The whole like, oh, I'm having an existential crisis, whether that be with like what's happening in the world around us or what's just happening in our personal lives, like that's just feeling and being confused about the concept of time, I think. And so maybe we all feel that in some way or another, but it's all different for each person.
I definitely think people feel time differently at different times. Like maybe right now I feel time pretty similarly to like other college seniors, but I feel like just in my situation, probably younger people don't feel time the way that I do currently. Yeah.
My dad likes to say like, it goes by so quick. It's just in an instant. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. I don't know, I'll figure that out later.
Does it ever feel like time is moving forward without you?
Yes, definitely. Why? I think a good example is maybe anxiety of productivity, where you need to do something and you're not doing it and everyone else is doing something and you feel like you're stuck but everybody else is moving.
Yes. Yeah, especially when I don't have like a consistent thing that I'm working on in a day.
What's like a specific example of that?
If I spend more time like quote unquote relaxing compared to like getting tasks done.
Say when you're like depressed and you just can't get out of bed, or you just sit in your house and you don't go outside for days on end, you know, like time isn't moving on without you. Everything's still going on in the world, but you're just kind of staying the same.
When I like am kind of having like a bad time like mentally, like I definitely feel out of body experiences a lot of the time, so I just feel like I'm watching myself do things and then I'll like snap out of it and be like, whoa, like a whole year passed. That's kind of dramatic, but like where did the day go, or like where did the week go?
No. Usually I feel like I'm being like dragged by the ankle through time, but I'm always there.
Yeah. I don't think I feel that way right now, but I definitely have times in my life where I was like, oh, I feel like I'm not growing at the same rate that the world is.
Not without me, just too fast for me.
Do you feel your age?
No, I've always felt younger than my age. I remember when I turned 6, I wanted to be 5, and then I don't feel 22 right now. I feel like 16.
I definitely feel silly goofy, which is awesome, but I do feel the burden of like having to think about the future a little bit, and I feel like really pulled in 2 different directions.
About to graduate college, yes.
When I see people around me, I feel like I always realize that these people were like elementary schoolers or like middle schoolers in their life. And part of me is like, I feel like we're all still those people and like very messy and like have no idea what's going on. People talk about like elementary school and like middle school, like with that, like, oh, I was like all over the place when I was a kid. But I also feel like everybody is still like that, but like just like better at hiding it.
Yes.
Why do you say so?
I think a lot of my life I felt like I was like 17, but I felt like I was like 26. Like I was like, I'm an old soul. And now I'm 20 and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm like a real person who's like an adult and who could do things. But I'm also like not ready to like file my own taxes.
Yes and no. I feel like I have the like, this is gonna sound funny, but like the toxic tendencies of a 22-year-old, but I feel like I have the like foresight of a 30-year-old to not go through with it. This is something I've been going through right now.
I don't feel like I've gotten older, or at least like the way that people seem to think that I should get older. I don't feel 21 or 22.
I feel my age. I'm 20 years old.
Do we exist in time, or does time exist in us?
Ooh, I think definitely we exist in time. Like, I feel like that's like the bigger connection to the universe, and then people are just kind of like the passages, like the little chapters.
Obviously, I think we're just like a piece in a puzzle, but that probably it's hard for most people to see it that way. It's a lot easier to internalize time, I think.
Time exists in us. Definitely.
Why do you think so?
I think so. Going back to what I said before, I think time is a perception. So we create it and not we are in it.
But like obviously things keep going. Like a rock is gonna face time, and it's not like a rock is like a soul or like a nervous system. But like it'll wear down as water runs over it, or it gets like thrown by a toddler over a cliff or something. But at the same time, like you feel it based on who you are and how long you've been around and what you've been through. I think there's some people who just like wake up and like years have gone by. They're like, I don't know what just happened. You know?
I want to think that time, like, lives within us, but I feel like it feels more so like the other way.
Sometimes I think about what it would be like to get rid of all clocks and just kind of exist, and I feel like it would really just kind of go away. Like, it is very much a social construct, and we work by the hours of the clock, but if we didn't have that, what would it be like?
And I don't really understand how we came up with our counting system. And of course, like, we are living and we go through our lives, but it all is made up in a way. The time, the watches, the phones, all of it is simply made up. So I think we live in time, but time lives in us more.
I think both are true, because I think we construct time for ourselves, and I think that time is also a physical property. So I think both are true.
In 10 seconds, tell us about someone that you love.
My mom, she's really wonderful. She's always been there for me, and I look up to her a lot. Like, she's what I aspire to be every day. Like, she taught me to be kind, she taught me to be patient, she taught me to put others before myself.
Someone that I love? I think the first things that comes to mind are my parents.
I don't think that I like realize that I love them enough, and so I don't know. I just like need to express that more to them.
Who are they in your life?
They're my mom.
I have people, I promise. She's very sweet and she always listens, even though she probably shouldn't all the time. And she should put more time to herself.
I love my roommate Emma. She's very by the book. She's very loving. She cooks for people, and she is very type A.
It's two boys, they're my nephews, and they're 6 and 3, and they're pure and sweet and loving and crazy and silly, and I love them.
I love Erin Hofstad. She's standing right in the kitchen. She likes biking and she likes her stuffed animals, and I love her for that.
Clearly, everyone experiences time differently, and the way it works scientifically is not really how it works in our day-to-day lives. It almost seems like an arbitrary and somewhat random measurement, and yet it is the framework from which we derive meaning in our lives. Birthdays don't have to signify a change in who you are. Simply being alive is worth celebrating. We all deserve hugs and candles and cake, and honestly, birthdays are just a good excuse to slow down and really appreciate all those things. And although the pace of time only changes based on your location and elevation, I'm sure most of us would agree that we could stand in the same spot forever and feel the days move by differently, one by one. At the end of the day, time is nothing without you. Regardless of how much we see it on the walls, in our bodies, and on our hands, you create it, value it, trace it, and use it to make your life more or less of the same, more or less of something different. Time is the reason why we finally swallow our ignorance like a pill and tell our mothers thank you. Why the perfect summer night feels like forever and yet never long enough. Why our coming of age stories just keep coming until we are running and running and running too fast to feel the weight of our life on our legs, the imprint of time on our back. And we are just left with the things time has allowed us to love. And let's hope that's enough.